Welcome back to the She Runs Strong podcast, powered by Coach Parry, with myself, Nikki Friedman, and Shona Hendricks. Today, we are doing another Q&A episode. We are talking about fatigue, heart rate zones, and your running watch. Right, Shona, welcome back.
Nice to see you.
You're coming across to the UK soon, I believe, for summertime in
Yeah,
London.
I know. I'm excited. I do always try and to skip the South African or the Johannesburg Pretoria winter because I hate winter with a passion. And so I always do try and come across to the UK for a little bit. I've really good friends, and actually I'm coming across to celebrate a friend's 50th. I'm also
Oh,
going to
amazing.
watch the ICC Test Championship with South Africa and Australia, and yeah, so a lot of cool things. But yeah, I'm
Fantastic. Are
hoping
you going to do?
Hmm?
You
Go
going to
ahead.
do some races while you're across here?
I haven't actually looked at races, and I should, but I am. I mean, I've the last time I was in London over summer, there was a heat wave, and right,
I
and
remember.
yeah,
Mm.
training in that heat wave was not particularly fun. And I know we're going to speak about that in this podcast as well. But yeah, I'm excited to come through. I mean, I love London. It's one of my favorite cities, and yeah, looking forward to obviously seeing you and Tutu, who's our other London-based crew, and yeah, obviously tons of friends, and maybe one or two Coach Parry or She Runs Strong members as well. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe we could get a race meetup somewhere. That would be quite cool, wouldn't it?
That would be
Just a
very
little
very
one,
cool.
short race.
Yeah, yeah, even yeah, but even a park run or something, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
that would
So
be nice.
yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
really, really
yeah,
good.
it's
So
great.
especially, yeah, like running in the heat's not always the best thing. And we'll answer that question as we mentioned, but maybe a park run is perfect and a nice coffee afterwards, which is probably better
Now
off.
you're
Yeah.
talking my language. Yep, refueling afterwards. I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
refueling.
Great.
Excellent. I love that. But yeah,
Yeah.
Nikki, so let's maybe get cracking. We've got some great questions today, and I'll start us off on the first one. We've got a question here from Nicole in Brighton. She is asking, how do I work out my zones? And whether that's, I guess, heart rate zones or pace zones. Do I need special equipment? Do you want to take us away with that one, Nikki?
Yes. Okay, so yes, you do need special equipment, but not too technical. Nowadays, running watches are relatively cheap, so a good running watch, and if you're looking at heart rate zones, which I'm assuming that she was actually referring to heart rate zones here, so
Okay,
let's
cool.
just assume that you need a heart rate strap, and that's really important. Nowadays, we have the watches are getting higher tech all the time. So they do give you some indication of your heart rate and they do monitor your heart rate. But to be really accurate, to get that proper feedback, you need that strap going round
Mm,
close to your heart to give you the best reading. And I know there's arm straps too, but our preference is always for that strap. So if you've got a nice watch and a good heart rate strap, then you're going to monitor your heart rate right, and your pace will come off your watch as well. So both are good. So if we're going to go for now, so I use Garmin, so I kind of reference Garmin's quite a bit, and I'm not sure how Chorus sets up or the other kind of running watches, but they will work out your heart rate zones for you, and they don't tend to be as accurate or as good. And so at Coach Parry, we have a way that we like to do it, and we like to work off threshold heart rate
mm,
or threshold paces. And they're both worked out the same way by doing a time trial effort. And we discussed a time trial effort, I think, in one of our other Q&A
mm,
episodes of how to do one of those. But so what you would do is a good hard effort for 30 to 40 minutes wearing your heart rate strap with your watch. And it's a full out effort. So we want a good warm up beforehand and you're ready to hit the ground and ready to give that good push in a time trial. And then we take your average pace and your average heart rate, and that is roughly speaking your threshold heart rate and your threshold pace. And then in our plans that we do at Coach Parry, we work out percentages. So, for example, your zone 2 would roughly be 75 to 82% of that threshold heart rate or threshold pace. And that's how we like to work out your zones. So it gets a bit nuanced. I can see you're dying
No,
to
no, no.
jump in there. On you go, Shona,
You
what are you going to
No,
say?
you're spot on, Nikki, with all of that, and I think just maybe to mention, the threshold stuff. Why we like to use it is because it's so specific to you as an
Yes,
individual. So I think
absolutely.
that's the key thing. It's not just based off your zones, based off a formula, which is really what the watches use. So that's specific, but really just to mention that I think there's always value in utilizing heart rate or pace as a metric, but something we always forget about is using your subjective feeling, so rate of perceived exertion. And I just think the more we utilize that with these other metrics, the more powerful and strong our training becomes. And so just very quickly, rate of perceived exertion on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being that you can do that activity all day long, and 10 being that you're feeling like you want to die. So your easy and your long runs, or your zone 2, should be somewhere between a 2 and a 3, at most a 4 out of 10. And then so try and monitor that with this heart rate, and you'll really start it's really
Tune in.
powerful to
Mm,
eventually tune in exactly to
yeah.
the running to feel. And so yeah, and again, also people often go, oh well, my zone says I'm correct. My zone says I'm running in zone 2, but I'm shattered. I'm exhausted afterwards. And then that gives us a good indication that actually those zones probably aren't worked out correctly. So that's
Yeah.
also where it's quite powerful.
Yeah.
But
Trust your feelings as well. Yeah, and do you know the beauty of doing threshold heart rate as well is that you can monitor it quite often in 5K time trials and with
yes,
parkruns and stuff. So if you have been sick or ill, you can just reset it quite easily, and that's the beauty of it. But and the RPE as well. So it's a good one, that. Okay, there
excellent.
you go, Nicole. All right, next question. Michelle from Cape Town in South Africa. Okay, so constantly fatigued, excuse me, and I run my long runs very easy and always include walk breaks. Been to a dietitian, and so I'm fueling enough, but I'm tired throughout the day. What could this be? Okay.
I mean, yeah, great question, Michelle. And I mean, first things foremost, I mean, of course, you have mentioned you've been to a dietitian, so we're assuming that that energy availability is correct. And of course, this could just be general menopause symptoms, right? Where
Yeah.
you are just feeling fatigued because hormones are a little bit out of whack. And so what we would do from a training perspective there, if that is the case, is just add in a bit more recovery into the week, maybe adjust the run for a cross training session. But again,
Yep.
let's assume that it's not necessarily menopause, and you're fueling correctly. I think it really could be one of two things, Nikki, and please jump in here, where we go. But I mean, you mentioned sleep
Yeah.
as really one of the biggest things. And yeah, so maybe just from your side, sleep and sleep during menopause, and how important that is, and how much we see females struggle with that.
Yeah, I think with the onset of perimenopause and menopause, your sleep becomes disrupted, but you're not really aware of it almost until hindsight, till you're
Mhm.
kind of way through it. And so if you're not sleeping soundly in the way that maybe you used to, that's going to affect your recovery. And that's when we do recover, that's when we rebuild at night. So you really need to be quite on top of your sleep. And there is a big move nowadays to sleep hygiene and not taking your phones to bed and scrolling, which really affects things. And I think we're all falling into that trap as well. But
Mm,
couple that with a bit of perimenopause and menopause symptoms, then that can really have a knock-on effect into your sleep and then your
yeah,
recovery and how you feel the next day. So definitely take a look at that. And if
yeah.
you are suffering from a little bit of insomnia, uh, weren't sort of aware and are waking up not quite as fresh as you used to be, then maybe that's worth just addressing that, whether it's just a bit more sleep hygiene or having a chat with your doctor, then that's
Yeah.
probably the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think the second thing that I was going to suggest there, Nikki,
yeah,
is and again, it's just because it's happened to me before. I know you've also had some iron concerns, but it might be worthwhile to get your iron levels checked, Michelle, with a doctor. Okay, so don't just go out and buy iron supplementation. We must realize that iron supplement, if we have if our levels of iron are too high, that becomes toxic. So please, guys, if you are worried about this, yeah, please always do this with a sports physician or a doctor. We need to make sure that because very often, not all iron is created equal as well. So very often maybe it's a ferritin shortage, or so again, we
yeah.
just need to be specific, and that's why we have to do these checks with the physician, and then get onto the right supplementation from there. But Yeah,
And
go ahead, Nikki, because
yeah,
we've both struggled with that.
it can make quite a difference. Well, funnily enough, I was speaking to an athlete on Saturday, and she had low iron, got it checked by the doctor based off our podcast that we had done before, and she's been supplementing iron, and now her easy runs have dropped 10 beats. Her heart rate has dropped
Oh my
10 beats. The
gosh,
easy, yeah, and she sort of said, really interesting fact, but
that
everything
is
just feels that
amazing.
bit easier, doesn't it? So, it can be really worth just checking what's happening internally in your system, and it can be something so simple, which would be really nice just to sort of top up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And as
that's
Nikki says, guys, we have done a deep dive in iron and all things iron supplementation and so yeah, definitely not enough time to answer that question in full here. But go back and have a look at the episodes,
yeah.
and that definitely, I mean, clearly it was a help to someone Nikki.
Yeah,
So that's awesome. Yeah,
I
love
know.
it.
That was great. That was a great wee story, that one.
Yeah,
So yeah. I think that was back in January, that episode went out.
brilliant.
Okay, cool. Next question. My watch keeps telling me that I'm not getting enough sleep. Oh, another sleep one. I am generally tired, but who isn't during menopause? Lol. Could I take what the watch says as the truth?
If you want to recover from sessions faster, not feel tired all the time, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join me in my upcoming training specifically for female runners over the age of 45. In it, I'll share with you my simple 5-step framework that'll transform your running. Simply scan the QR code on screen now or click on the link in the description to save your seats in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, great question. And Nikki, you know me, I love this.
Yes,
And I told the story, we did a really great episode of this with Ntutu, who's
yes,
one of
yes,
the
yes.
coaches on our team. He really went into the ins and outs of using your watch. And so please go check that out. I really recommend it. And I started that episode by telling you a story, and this is a legit story, is that a friend of mine was staying at their house, actually in London, the friends that I'm going to go visit.
Yep.
And I said to her, I was like, how did you sleep? And she looks at her watch and she went, yeah, okay, I think, and I'm just, again, I just think my biggest thing about this is, well, how do you feel? So, if you're feeling tired, then of course we're not sleeping correctly or enough. And so these devices are useful and they provide us with so much information, but we shouldn't let them dictate how we feel. So, this is such a good question, to say, well, my watch is telling me I'm not getting enough sleep and she is tired.
Yeah.
So likely she probably isn't getting enough sleep. But on the other side, you told me as well, your watch, your
Well,
watch
yeah.
told you that you're good
No,
to go.
I mean, it was interesting. You'd pop this question in, and this morning I woke up and my stats, I think, were the highest they've been in a good few, like 3-4 weeks. But honestly, I felt shattered this morning, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I don't get that." So I was like, "Right, well, I'll go to the gym. Maybe 10 minutes in, everything will feel good." It didn't. I came home from the gym and I went for a wee power snooze, and so it lied to me. My watch, basically.
I think
It told me I was good to go, and I
that's
definitely
right.
wasn't good to go this morning.
And you would,
Um,
but again, at least you made the call. Okay, how you felt superseded, or overrode the watch's
yeah.
verdict, and I think that's the key thing here is these watches are there to guide us. They're not there to,
Mm.
there's an amazing quote. It's like we shouldn't be data driven. We should be data informed, which I think is such a nice way to do it. Don't let the data drive your decisions. Let it inform your decisions. But nonetheless, I think I'm getting carried away on the devices
No.
specifically. But let's say she is tired. She does say that, and so you mentioned sleep hygiene, Nikki, in the last
Yes,
question,
yes, yes.
and this is definitely an excellent points, because these are things that we can control, because so much we can't control within menopause and perimenopause, when the insomnia and of course there's hormonal therapy and for that. But yeah, a few aspects of sleep hygiene. You mentioned the cell phones, so being off your cell phones or your laptops an hour before. I mean, again, reality is versus what we do, but
But
the
it
trap.
shouldn't be that difficult, actually. I mean, there is no reason to be on your phone an hour before bed. It's just,
Absolutely. It just
you've got to scroll
it's
it.
habits. It's
I
habits, right?
know.
And so, I tried to pick up a book the other night as opposed to being on my phone, and that actually worked a charm. I fell asleep in a second. I didn't even read the whole page, So,
That's it. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
10 years ago, I would have always been on a book and read a
exactly.
book. and fallen asleep really nicely. And now you just, oh, I'll just check. Oh, I better
Oh,
just send that message. Oh, I better like check this.
let me see what's happening on Instagram. Let me scroll
Yeah,
Twitter. Oh my gosh, I
I
know.
know.
So,
So
but yeah,
yeah,
so I think that's a big thing. Try and avoid any lights in your room. I mean, if you have a television in your room, or I don't know if you have an old school alarm clock, try and cover those lights, or lights from a plug. Because we've said this before, the membrane on your eye is very thin. So even when you're sleeping, that light will still go in, and the optic nerve will react, into the
yeah.
brain, and that creates brain activity. So that's also a good one. You wanted to say there, Nikki, as well?
Yeah, I mean, she's saying that she's generally tired, but who isn't during menopause and stuff? So, maybe just taking a little bit extra rest and recovery as well. If she's not sleeping that well, maybe just it's always good to get a bit of exercise. And I know there's a
Mm,
huge amount around sleep, and I've been reading a bit about the mind and how it works recently. And just within the morning and getting up and getting some fresh air and making sure you've got your kind of
mm,
fresh air during the day, a bit of fresh air at night before you go to sleep as well. So and then just taking a look at her program and just seeing if she isn't doing too much as well, I suppose. But I mean, there's all
yeah.
this, chicken and egg, lots of stuff that you could look at there, I think.
No, absolutely. The only
I
other
like,
thing I'd say from a sleep perspective though is maybe just try to get to bed a half an hour before your
yeah,
usual time. So even if even and it'll come. It just takes time to change that habit. But again, there's just a good release of hormones and yeah, I think just trying to get, and I always say this to people, the proposed sleep is 8 hours of night. But I mean, that's ideal. And every time I say that, women look at me like, oh my gosh, Shona, like you don't know my story, So just try and get an extra half an hour, and just build into that. But the sleep hygiene stuff will help the quality of sleep,
yeah.
and I think that's the key thing there as well. Yeah.
I know. I heard a really good tip the other day, just lastly. Just if you do need your phone for an alarm clock or just to check something like the weather in the morning or there's something, leave your phone out of the room, but take your iPad in if you've got an iPad. Have you heard this
Okay.
one as well? And then
No,
you don't tend to scroll on your iPad apparently in the same way that you scroll on your phone.
because it's bigger. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and so
Okay.
it sort of it does limit. So you do tend to check, but you don't scroll in the same way. And I was thinking, yeah, that's probably true actually. I probably don't scroll on my iPad. It's probably more functionary than what I
Yeah.
do on my phone. So perhaps leave your phone downstairs, put it in a cupboard, take up your iPad, set your alarm, the weather or whatever you need to check first thing in the morning, and then maybe that's a good way to stop, but you still have what you need to check in the mornings when you get up.
Brilliant. Yep.
So
Excellent answer. So, yeah, I hope that helps. Let's move on to the next one. So Jane is from Michigan in the USA, and Nikki, Jane is saying, I'm currently in my taper period for a marathon. I'm terrified of putting on weight during this time, but I'm cautious about training too much as well. So should I cut back on my carbs? And Jane, I'm just going to interrupt Nikki if she was going to answer that, but no. Okay, so answer is no. At the end of the day, if you are eating a well-balanced diet with good macronutrients, so good proteins, good carbs, then you don't need to cut down, because essentially, we still want to go into the race with enough carbs. You don't want to go into that race in a depleted state. And if you do go into a restrictive diet, I just think you're going to go into that race, in a depleted state. And really the concept of carbo loading, this old school Nikki, we must eat lots of carbs before we race. That I actually believe you might risk putting on weight a little bit more. And so
yes,
just
yeah,
understand that as we go into taper, you are obviously reducing your volume, but if we're eating the same, you're pretty much carbo loading without the risk of putting on weight. Okay, so you're just filling up those glycogen stores. But of course, this is good carbs, right, Nikki? It's
yes.
not,
So naturally,
not the
yeah, no. So this always makes me laugh. When I was regularly doing spring marathons, I never enjoyed the taper phase particularly much, because I love eating. But for me, I just had always one golden rule in the taper phase because I am a chocoholic, and I would eat loads of chocolate. So when it got to taper phase, 3 weeks out, and very often that would time with Easter time and Easter eggs as well. So there'd often be a lot of chocolate about as well. So I
Yes.
always gave up chocolate. That was my one
Okay.
thing. And that was the sort of that was enough, because when you're doing a lot of running and the big
Mm,
runs and stuff, a chocolate bar and stuff is fine, and
mm,
you can that's all kind of good fuel, really. I mean, chocolate's not that bad for you, is it? But when it comes to taper time,
yeah.
I would, like you say there, I would always eat well, eat my good foods, but I would cut out chocolate because that was
Okay.
the thing that I could go slightly overboard. Because also I never enjoyed the taper particularly and training less.
Mm,
So I would binge on chocolate a little bit. So
okay.
that was my go-to. So that was my one little tip.
I love that.
Um,
I know, but I love
yeah,
that because again, it just hits on the fact that if you eating all the good carbs, like you're not going to risk that energy output versus input because you're not then binging on the chocolate and that sort of thing. I mean, my thing, Nikki, is wine. So I in my taper time, I don't have wine or alcohol. Well, wine that's obviously just it helps with sleep
yeah,
and
yeah.
so on and but again, it's obviously full of
Just,
sugar, right? Because it's fermented grapes. But
yes.
again, yeah. So again, if you are eating well and giving up, I'm not giving up. I hate saying that, but really focusing on not having the treats in that time. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Then I think Jane, I really do think that you'll be fine.
And you're still training, I mean, you should just still
Exactly.
be running. You should still be going through the motions with strength. So,
Mm,
there should be no real reason to be putting on weight at this
agreed.
particular point. And yeah, I mean, and the chocolate's a hard one, but it's great when you can taste it afterwards and have all those saved up Easter eggs or whatever.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, but then also nice treats for post marathon, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
my favorite thing post marathon to have. Well, it's normally a beer, but yes,
a
it's
beer or two,
yeah, a beer or
definitely.
two,
Uh-huh.
and then 1 or 2 truckies afterwards. So no, definitely. So Jane, I hope that helps. Yeah, and then coming into our last question, we alluded to this at the beginning of the
Oh
show.
yes.
Kerry is asking, and Kerry, I guess I should be asking the same question. Is that essentially coming into summer in the UK? How should I adjust my training for the heat, if at all? Yeah, Nikki, what's your advice for me coming to London? If I will be training, I'm not sure if I'll be racing, but yeah, how do I adjust my training in the heat?
So, well, I'm thinking you're probably quite experienced at adjusting your training for the heat. So I'm sure
I'm
you'll be a
probably
pro,
just used to the heat,
and be a
so
pro at this. But for those people like myself who have gone through the winter and it's been quite cold and quite wet and stuff, adjusting your training. So really, I would say tapping into your perceived
mm,
effort as well for this a
mm,
little bit more. The heart rate monitoring is a great thing to do and definitely shows you what's happening internally, but just
mm,
you want to just sort of ease back with the pace and just feel that pace a little bit more. So hopefully you've tuned into yourself a little bit more and you're just lessening the intensity and going a little bit slower. Um, Obviously, picking a cooler time of day is good, so it's getting more into those early mornings, I'm afraid, and getting up a little bit earlier to beat the heat, which is something you South Africans are well used to
yeah,
getting up. Whereas we trying to like do our work in the mornings and then go out at lunchtime in the hottest part of the day. But yeah, no, getting the early morning runs in is definitely good. Tuning
good.
into your heart rate and just making sure that it's a wee bit lower, so adjusting your pace is another good one as well.
Yeah. I think, Nikki,
And
the key thing here is that, people must understand that the two factors that will influence your performance in a run, whether it's a race or training run, and you can't actually do anything about it. We can't change it. It's heat and
no,
altitude. Those things are always going to impact us. And so what we have to do is we have to adjust, as Nikki is saying, adjust our expectations in and around that. So we still, guys, want those easy runs to feel easy. And what that will mean essentially is that you're going to have to slow down. And I know that's frustrating, but don't measure yourself based on that. And I've seen it time and time again with my athletes and my runners who are in the northern hemisphere training through the summer. The minute the weather starts cooling down, it's like a switch that they just get back to those old paces, if not even faster, if they have slowed down. The thing is that if you're not slowing down and you're running slightly harder, you're putting more stress on the body. You're not going to recover as well, and you're going to go into the winter or the autumn a little bit
Yeah, no stress.
less recovered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know
It
it's
is.
frustrating. But yeah,
Yeah, it's just very hard, isn't it? I mean, I had an athlete who was racing at the weekend in 30-degree heat. I'm not sure what that is in
yeah.
Fahrenheit.
I think
And
around
high,
90, it's around 90, 95, I think, in
yeah,
Fahrenheit.
and high humidity. And so both of those, but still went out at the pace that he had proposed to at the start, didn't adjust the pace, and after about 5K, just kind of
Yeah,
came to a grinding halt because the body doesn't like it when it gets too hot, and it really just stops.
yeah,
And so, I mean, that's racing. Racing is different. You do need to really adjust your pace for the heat
yeah,
and stuff. And we're talking training here, but
yeah. But
um,
yeah, but same, you do have to adjust your pace for training as well. You have to understand that it will be slightly slower. Maybe, not necessarily
yeah.
as much in racing, but it will be slightly slower. But
If there's
yeah,
one positive, though, I would say is when you come to doing a bit more speed work and say track work and stuff, it's much nicer in the warmth and your muscles stay warmer. So that's always a good time to get. I always think a little bit if you're ever sort of leaning towards doing a little bit of track work and faster work, it's a great time to pick up the sort of shorter, faster intervals because your muscles stay warm
stay
longer.
warm.
So
Okay.
that's a nice time to do
Yeah,
that.
that's
As
a
long as you're
privilege that
hydrating
yeah,
well and
yeah,
keeping
yeah,
yourself, hydrated and you're not doing it in the real heat of the day, but
definitely.
certainly a nice warm day is good for things like that as well.
But I
Anything
think that's a key point just on the hydration as well is that is something that you have to take into account is that you are training in the heat, you have to hydrate more. In your longer runs
like
where you are fueling, you absolutely have to take in more water. I've run marathons and long runs before where I've almost taken in the same amount of water with my fueling and felt extremely nauseous. So that can be a side effect of the heat if you are taking in some sort of glycogen and not hydrating enough, the tummy can just, the gut just doesn't really like that. So really, really hydrate more. I mean, the general rule of thumb is drink to thirst, so make sure that you are just hydrating. And if you're going for a long run, pack a bladder and a vest and just, plan your routes around water stops. And yeah, that is absolutely key in the heat
yeah.
as well. So
Yeah, and don't be
yeah,
afraid to add in walk breaks as well, because it just
absolutely.
keeps everything just that little bit cooler and reduced. And your body's working so hard that if you can just like bring it back down again, then it's always good. And then a top tip for London, Shona, top tip
Yes.
for London is go in the local Tesco's or Sainsbury's because they've always got super good air conditioning.
Aircon. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've done that before when I've been in London over January or December, February, and
Yeah,
just walked into the shops because it's warmer. So definitely we'll take that advice and I'll make sure I'll buy some
nice and cool.
some post running juice just to refuel or something there. So it's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
excellent tip. I love
super,
that. And
super
yeah,
cool.
no,
But
love
yeah,
it.
no, it's
Well,
great.
well, yeah, I mean, I think, guys, if you have any comments on what's worked for you in the heat, I mean, I'm from
Yeah,
South Africa, so that's quite a privilege with regards to that. But
yeah,
especially, the heat in South Africa versus the heat in London, it's just it's different heat. So yeah, so if you have tips or ideas or something that has worked for you, pop it in the comments below so everyone can learn from you
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And but
Yeah,
yeah,
another
Nikki.
another good tip is just getting yourself cold as soon as you finish as well. Getting in that cold
Yes.
shower or cold. I'm sure you guys do that all the time. It's a great one. But yeah, pop the tips in.
Pop the
Mm,
tips in there in the comments below, and of course, if there are any other questions or anything that you want us to have a look at, please put it in the comments
definitely.
below as well. But Nikki, great questions today. Really enjoyed that. Thank you
Oh,
as always, for your
right.
expertise.
Good, good,
Yeah,
good.
and looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks
Yep.
everyone for your
Next time.
questions. Keep them coming in as well. And yeah, we'll see you guys all again next week.
Cheers,
Bye
guys.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.